Продължаваме с втората ни тема. Нашият ректор Сириън Съмнър е един от тези хора, които не се страхуват да отидат до най-тъмните кътчета на планетата, за да изследват най-странните и привидно страшни, поне за мен и не се съмнявам за повечето от вас, създания. Тя е професор по поведенческа екология в University College Лондон и е днес тук, за да ни поговори за осите. Нека да я посрещнем с аплодисменти. Сириън.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome back from the coffee break. I'm Siriън Съмнър. I'm a behavioural ecologist at University College London. That means that I'm interested in how and why animals do what they do. I also teach undergraduate students and master's students and postgraduate students. So I combine my research with a lot of teaching the next generation of scientists. Now, I'm here to tell you today about probably a very uncomfortable topic. I'm going to tell you about the secret world of wasps. But before I do that, I'm going to start with a rather dismal beginning. Now, Hugh beautifully explained to you the demise of the planet, the challenges that our planet is facing. We are living in unprecedented times with climate change, biodiversity loss, and land use degradation or ecosystem degradation. We are pushing our planet to its very limits. And the reason we're doing that is because we just want more. We want more resources out of that planet. So let's make us grow. We want to be bigger and better and fatter and richer. Humans have always relied on the planet for resources. But the extent to which we are draining the planet of its resources is now unsustainable. We are pushing the planet beyond its levels of stability, towards this tipping point that Hugh talked about. We need, in order to recover from this, we need to fix the planet, we need to have transformational change. And I mean change in our behaviour, the change in everyone's behaviour in this room, but most importantly, the change in behaviour of the people who make the big decisions. But how are we going to be able to make those decisions, and how are we going to be able to reconnect ourselves with nature such that we value it and we want to care for it, and we put nature before ourselves, and we live such that we are part of nature rather than a part of it? That's the transformational change we need in order to help save the planet. How are we going to do that when we are increasingly becoming an urbanized species? 50% of us already live in urbanized environments, and by 2050, 70% of us will be living in an urbanized environment. That means that we are even more divorced from nature. That means that we have even more reason to notice nature and to value it and care for it, because we're so far removed from it. In the last 200 years, we've seen this massive divorce from nature. We are disconnected from nature. Our children cannot identify really common species like robins and stinging nettles and bumblebees. Almost half of the UK adult public, say that they do not feel, or they feel very unconnected to nature. It's depressing times, and yet if we are to achieve this transformational change and make everyone love the planet and try and value the planet, we really need to see people reconnecting with nature and learning to love every facet of it. But sadly, we are facing this extinction of experience as our children grow up unconnected with nature, unable to identify these simple organisms that they might see on their walk to school. And the extinction of nature, this term was actually coined over 50 years ago, and yet it's not really come into its time until now. This term, extinction of experience, has never been more timely. We need to learn how to reconnect with nature, and we need to learn to notice the nature around us. And the reason why we need to do this is actually nicely summed up by Baba Diom in the third IUCN conference in 1968, when he said, "We will conserve only what we love, we will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught." Now, as somebody who is teaching the next generation of biologists, I feel I do have a responsibility to carry these wise words through my teaching and through my science to help the next generation do a better job than we've done and our previous generations have done. But this is a really tricky problem for me because I study the least loved of any organism, the wasp. So I'm up against a brick wall. And I know this because if I just put the words wasps into Google, I come up with these kinds of images. Wasps are depicted as the gangsters of the insect world. There is nothing nice about them, so the internet tells me. They are much maligned, much misunderstood. They have inspired a lot of cultural references, books and films. Like this film here is one of the worst films in the world. It's called Dragon Wasps. They have these enormous mutant robotic wasps that shoot fire out of their abdomen and kill lots of humans. It's just a truly awful film, but it just sums up how wasps are always demonized in popular culture. Perhaps my most favorite depiction of wasps in popular culture is the Wasp Woman, which I like to call myself, for all of the reasons not summed up by this film. But this is a film from the 1960s. It's terribly cardboard cut out. I do recommend you have a watch of it. But the lady in the picture, who is a wasp, she is dumped by her boyfriend, and because she's looking too old and craggy, and so she starts to treat herself with wasp venom, which has these purifying, beautifying effects on her. So during the day, she is a beautiful woman, but at night, she becomes a ferocious predator of men, getting revenge on all the men who've mistreated her in the past. It's one of my favorites. But this fear of wasps, this revulsion of wasps, this depiction of them being the most miserable and fearsome creatures is not a new thing. It's not just popular culture that views wasps like this. We can look back to arguably the first published entomologist, Aristotle, who wrote and studied humans and honeybees with great depth. And he also studied a little bit on the wasps. And actually what he wrote about wasps is remarkably accurate, unlike what he wrote about bees. But he does have this, and I think this is really important to say, that over 2,000 years ago, I blame Aristotle, quite frankly, for why you guys feel about wasps in the way that you probably do. He says that hornets and wasps are devoid of the extraordinary features which characterize bees. They have nothing divine about them as the bees. And this comparison with bees is the bane of my life. And I will be coming back to this later on in the talk. But aside from Aristotle, you can pick any religious text from around the world, and you will probably find that that deity sends wasps to punish the unbelievers, to those who don't behave well. So in at least 3 books of the Bible, God sends hornets, which is a large type of wasp, to punish the unbelievers. So this fear, this fearsome depiction of wasps is deep-rooted in our human culture. So I'd like to know what kind of an audience you are. Please go to the Slido, which I hope you'll get your phones out. It's a rare opportunity to use your phones. I'm encouraging you to switch those phones on, go to the Slido, and I'm going to ask you, just immediately, when you think about wasps, which words spring to mind? Try not to look at the screen until you've put your words in, because you're biasing the data then. I can see that you are largely a typical audience. Although I do like the fact that you describe them as beautiful and sexy. So the words keep coming in. So you are a very typical audience. I was hoping that the side, I don't know how the side has been set up, but I think the color possibly depicts the number of people who are using those different words. Normally we depict them in the size. And my guess is that sting in green and in those box is probably the word that most of you use to describe wasps. Hands up, who'd use sting in their words to describe wasps? Yeah, quite a few of you, yeah. So that is very, very typical. So congratulations, everybody. You are so boringly typical. I could have predicted that you were going to say this, and I can predict this because, sorry, can I go back to my presentation? Because I've run this experiment before on more than, I think there's about 400 of you in this room, perhaps. I've run this experiment on over 750 members of the public. Largely British public, I have to confess. And the size of the word indicates the number of people who use that word. And you can see very clearly on the left-hand side that that's the word cloud for wasps. And pretty much the only word that most people have to describe wasps is sting. So I have to congratulate you, actually. Your vocabulary appears to be much more rich than the vocabulary of the average public. So well done, you. Pat on the back. But in the same experiment, we asked people to tell us what words spring to mind when you think about bees. And the results of that are depicted on the right. And you can see the contrast. The words that people use to describe bees are very emotive and positive and sum up the utility. So honey, pollination, flowers, beautiful, buzz, summertime. I mean, I can feel you all smiling just thinking about bees. This is what I have to live up to. So I'm up against this all the time. In fact, I've been studying wasps for over 25 years, and the number of times that people have said, what do you do for a living? I say, I study wasps. And they go, why don't you study bees instead? Honestly, I'm so fed up. As you can tell, I'm slightly angry. So I'm up against this. We're going back to Bubba's quote. We will conserve only what we love. We don't love wasps. We will conserve only what we understand. We don't understand wasps. That's what we know from that last word cloud. It told us that people know what bees do. People know that bees pollinate. 5-year-old children can tell you that bees pollinate. They're super important. You ask any member of the public, on average, what do wasps do? They don't know. Now, you are special people, and by the end of this talk, you are going to be ambassadors for what wasps do for you and the environment. But I'm up against it. I've been up against this for 25 years now, and I just have to focus on this last part of Baba's quote. We will understand only what we are taught. So I'm going to tell you what I have learned from the wasps that I have studied over the last 25 years around the world. So the wasps have taken me to the most fantastic places, especially the tropics, because the diversity of wasps in the tropics is really quite remarkable. In the bottom right-hand corner there, in the Malaysia picture, that is me sitting in a drainage ditch. Science is very glamorous. That is where I began my journey to wasps. I am sitting in a drainage ditch in the rainforests of Malaysia, and above my head, you might just be able to work out, spot these brown sticks. Each one of those sticks is a wasp nest, and the dark spots on those sticks are wasps. So I am literally crouched in a contained space with thousands of wasps above my head. Now, for most people, that will be your idea of hell. But for me, it's heaven, because as a scientist, I want lots of different individuals, lots of different nests, so I can do experiments on them. I have a good sample size, and I can test theories and hypotheses. So this is where I started my career with wasps. These wasps are actually a fantastic gateway beginner's wasp. So if you're thinking of getting into wasps, my recommendation is you take yourself to a drainage ditch in Malaysia, and you will find these wasps, which are so cute, so lovely, so sweet. They do sting, but their stings are described as a fragrant tickle. practically a kiss. So that's your gateway wasp if you want to get into wasps. After that, I moved on to the much bigger, scarier wasps, which do have big stings, and I've learnt the hard way to protect myself at all measures. But on my travels, as well as being taught the importance of wasps by the wasps, I also learned about the importance of wasps by talking to the people that I met. Because it turns out that us lot in the Northern Hemisphere are actually quite different to the rest of the world. There are people around the world who actually have really positive relationships with wasps. And we've got so much more to learn from them. They live much more connected to nature still than we do. And we have so much more to learn from them about how to repair our relationship with nature. And in this case, our relationship with wasps. So despite my best efforts of publishing scientific papers and even writing a book, I still have to dress up as a wasp on many occasions to talk to audiences like you. Sadly, I couldn't fit my wasp costume on the plane, but nonetheless, this is my best effort. So I do love to talk to people about wasps. I feel like I've somehow it's my role to evangelize about wasps, be their cheerleaders. Every insect, every organism needs a cheerleader. I will. I do a lot of activities with children, and at any opportunity, I will stand up and talk about wasps. So it's one of my favorite things, and I probably won't stick till time because of that. But what I'm going to do is it's going to help me stick to time and help you go home with key messages to tell your friends and family about why they should love wasps. So there's 7 reasons. 7's a good number because 10's too many and 5's too few. So 7's a good number. So we're going to do a countdown. So you know where you are in this, so you know exactly what's coming. The 7th reason to love wasps, the 7th reason to love wasps, is that they are super diverse. Here is a slide of the photos of wasps by friends of mine from around the world who study wasps. Some of those pictures you probably wouldn't even realize are wasps because they really don't look like wasps to you. And to be fair, some of them I didn't even realize they were wasps when I first saw them. Would anybody like to hazard a guess to how many species of wasps have been described in the world? 4. Any advance on 4? Shout it out, don't be shy. Come on, you're a clever crowd, if a bit biased. 4,000, any advance? Oh, come on, you can do better. That side say 4,000, what do you say? 20,000 from the lady in the front row there. Anyone, come on, give a bit more. 21, pathetic. 500,000. Oh my God, you've overshot here, honey. It's good to be ambitious, but that's a little bit too ambitious. Actually, it might not be too ambitious. Over 100,000 species of wasps have been described. 100,000 described species of wasps. Let me put that in perspective for you. How many species of bees have been described in the world? 4? Shut up. Any more? How many species of bees? 5,000. 22,000, actually, sir, whoever said that, almost right. There's 22,000 species of bees in the world. There are over 100,000 species of wasps. So why does everybody love bees? It's just not fair. And even more astonishing is that although 100,000 species of wasps have been described, scientists estimate that there are 5 to 10 times more species of wasps to discover. Get that, bees. Get back in your box. So wasps are incredibly diverse. They include some of the largest insects. This is Vespa mandarinia, otherwise known as the murder hornet. If you've been to the US and you've had these as invasive species, they come from Asia, where they are certainly not murder hornets. They are exquisite, important apex predators of their ecosystems. But I have to say, they are quite big. So I've been to Asia and I've worked with these guys. They have a wingspan of 12 centimeters and they can fly 40 kilometers an hour. So when you're sitting in the forest, you can hear them coming. They're like little helicopters. You hear them before you see them. They're big. At the other end of the wasp spectrum, we have the smallest insect in the world. Not just the smallest wasp, it's the smallest insect. Annoyingly, it's called a fairy fly. Looking at no one in particular, Erica McAllister, Miss Fly. They're called fairy flies or fairy wasps. They are less than 0.1 millimeters in size, and they only live for a few days. And yet they are super important. And in fact, the only reason we know anything about them is because of their importance in biocontrol, because this is a type of parasitoid wasps. So they don't have stings, but they lay their eggs through an egg-laying sheath called an ovipositor. They lay their egg onto caterpillars or beetle larvae, which are often pests, crop pests. And then the egg will hatch into a cute little baby fairy fly larva and eat its way through that caterpillar. And so in that way, they're actually really important in biocontrol, and they're used around the world as biocontrol agents. You might still be itching in your seat to say, I still love bees. It's fine to love bees. I don't mind much. But it's important to know that we would never have had any bees if it hadn't been for the wasps. Bees are simply wasps that have forgotten how to hunt. They are just vegetarian wasps. Bees are just vegetarian wasps. And ants are super cool. They build these amazing colonies, these super organismal colonies, and they form these phenomenally efficient foraging paths. Everyone loves an ant. Ants are just wasps that have forgotten how to fly, apart from the sexuals that still fly. So wasps are the root of everything, basically. Wasps have given us bees. Wasps have given us ants. Wasps has given us the incredible diversity, which means that they are probably the most speciose insect on the planet. Okay, number 6, assassins. Wasps kill in the most fabulous, exquisite, and deadly ways, but silently and slowly. It's generally quite a long, slow death. This is a parasitoid wasp. She's beautiful. You get these guys in Europe, in the UK as well. You can see that she's sitting on a log, and her antennae have detected the presence of her host inside the log. So I think it might be a caterpillar. She's detected the vibrations of that caterpillar inside the log using her antenna. Incredible sensory biology. And then using that long black sheath that sticks out of her bottom, her abdomen down to the wood, that is her ovipositor, her egg-laying sheath. And she's drilling down into the wood and laying her egg on the caterpillar inside the wood. Isn't that amazing? That's pretty damn amazing. So the parasitoid wasps all do this, and they will often be quite specific in the type of host that they will seek out. The caterpillar that she has paralyzed will carry on living and bumbling along whilst the larva is eating it alive. 30,000 species of wasps do have stings and yet don't live in those big societies that you might have typically think of social wasps. These are the solitary hunting wasps. And this young lady is called Pepsis plutus. She is exquisite and beautiful in every way. That is my hand. She's very big. She's a pompilid spider hunting wasp. We caught her in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, and she is sitting on top of a tarantula, which is not dead. She's paralyzed, that tarantula. And if we hadn't caught her, she would have flown off with that tarantula and buried it in the ground in her burrow, laid an egg on it, sealed it up and said goodbye. That egg will then hatch into a cute baby Pepsis plutus wasp and munch its way through that living larder, which is that paralyzed tarantula. Isn't that marvelous? That's brilliant parental care. That is a mum who cares. You know, what mums have gone out and hunted a tarantula for their kids, hey? Did you do that, madam? Did you? Hey? This is another one of my favorite wasp killers. This is the jewel wasp. Isn't she beautiful? She's really exquisite in every way, incredibly iridescent. She hunts the only insect that I'm allowing you all to hate, which is the cockroach. I hate cockroaches because it's impossible to kill them. You throw your walking boot at them and then they just scuttle off. Nothing will kill them, except jewel wasps. Jewel wasps will kill these cockroaches, well, they paralyze the cockroaches, but the cockroach is often much larger than her. So she has to have quite an ingenious way of dealing with it. And what she does is she first gives it a sting roughly in its thorax, its chest area, to stop it running away. And it sort of lies there a bit dazzled. And then she will inject her venom into its brain. And she'll deliver a neurotoxin into the brain, which renders the cockroach zombie-like. It can still walk, but it has no free will. And then she is able to drag it by its antenna and lead it like a well-trained poodle to its underground tomb. And then she'll put it in the ground, just like the Pepsis with her tarantula, and she'll bury it with an egg. And the egg will hatch into a beautiful baby larval jewel wasp and munch its way through the living, paralyzed cockroach. Don't we love that? Thank you. Round of applause for the jewel wasp. Woo! Okay, right. Number 5, the 5th reason why you should love wasps. Paper makers. Can I have a show of hands? Who's had a wasp nest that looks a bit like this in their shed or their loft? Yep, there's quite a few of you. Yes, they're a very common occurrence. In fact, it's these wasps that give wasps a bad name. They're the ones that bother you at your picnics. At the end of the summer, they get in your beer. They're so annoying, aren't they? Yeah, well, no, actually, you're the annoying thing. You're the problem, not the wasp. These wasps are exquisite in their architecture. They build the most phenomenal structures. If you have the joy and pleasure of having a nest in your shed or your garden this year, when the first frosts have come and gone, you can go in and get that paper nest. Take it down. All the wasps will be dead. They'll all have gone. And you'll be left with this perfect structure, which on the surface might look a bit like a football. It'll have this casing of paper, the envelope. And she's made that by collecting wood from your fence post and your wooden garden furniture. And if you look very closely at the picture on the middle at the bottom, you'll see all of these beautiful, different coloured lines. Those are different types of wood that she's collected around your garden, and perhaps your neighbour's garden. And you might even see bits of blue or green in there. That's if your neighbour has a blue or green fence. She will just paint it. She would just scrape off that painted wood and incorporate it into the nest. Now that envelope has to be really light and cheap to make. So the wasps are constantly expanding it to accommodate the growing combs inside. So that is just one type of paper that these wasps make. But inside the nest, there are 2 other types of paper. And the way that they make the paper is that once they gather the wood, they'll mix it up with their saliva. We don't know how they make these different types of paper, but we know that they do it. And we also think that possibly by watching wasps make paper, this gave us, humans, the idea to make paper. Inside the nest, we have these combs. Now, they're just like a honeybee comb. They're hexagonal, but they're arranged, unlike a honeybee, as layers, like floors in a high-rise building. So you can see these layers of combs, and the cells point downwards, and each cell will have an egg laid in it, and that egg by the queen, and the egg will grow into a larva, and then eventually pupate. So when a nest is at its full capacity with thousands of brood in it, it's incredibly heavy. And so that means that this comb needs to be made of incredibly light but strong paper. They have mastered architecture, they have mastered physics, and even more excitingly, in order to make this hexagon perfect, they use their antenna to measure. So they're also mathematicians. Now, between those combs, you've got a 3rd type of paper. And this type, they're the stilts that join the combs together. And they hold the combs at just the right distance apart so that the wasps can move in and out easily and tend the brood. But those stilts that hold the combs together are remarkable in their consistency, completely different to the papery, light envelope and the strong, light combs inside. They are so pliable. If you get that nest out of your attic or your shed and you have a go and you try and pull those apart with your hands, you cannot do it. It's so strong. It's bendy. It's incredible. How do these wasps do it? We don't know. And it's not just the common yellow-jacket wasps that make such incredible architectural feats. Wasps around the world make all sorts of different kinds of structures, and they make them from clay as well as paper, and they can build things that you would never think of as being a wasp nest. So the architecture of wasps in its own right is exquisite and remarkable as the diversity of the wasps themselves. Okay, let's have a bit of a recap. What was number 7, guys? Diversity. What was number 6? Assassins. Number 5. Paper makers. Number 4 is socialites. Now this is what got me into wasps. I started studying the social behavior of wasps because by studying the social behavior of wasps, we can understand how and why altruism evolves. Altruism is where an individual will give up its chance to reproduce in order to help another individual. And it's one of the big paradoxes, or so we thought, in biology. And wasps are a fantastic model system for understanding this. Now, I'm going to start with these lovely yellow jacket wasps. So this is from my village in Oxfordshire where I live. It's inside an oil drum, and you can see the exquisite structures of the combs, and there are literally thousands of wasps there. All but one of them are workers. If you look very carefully at the top, you might spot the queen. She's a little bit bigger. She's quite hard to spot, but you might spot her. So these wasp nests, and they're exactly the same as the ones you might find in your shed, they are like the honeybee of the wasp world. Everything that is divine, as Aristotle said, and marvelous about honeybees is also found in these wasp nests. They are superorganisms in the same way that honeybees are. So our millennia-long fascination with honeybees, it's the same things going on in the wasps, but we haven't studied them. We don't understand how these wasps find their prey. We don't understand how they communicate to other individuals in the nest to recruit workers. We know how honeybees do that. We don't know how these wasps do it, despite them being almost the most common insect that you will see in the summer. But the thing that really got me interested in wasps is these much simpler societies. So not all wasps live in these big societies, these superorganisms with queens and workers, which are mutually dependent on each other and can't live independently. There are lots of other different kinds of social societies. These are the Polistes wasps that I studied for many years in Panama. People keep asking me, do you have a favorite wasp? I do. This is my favorite wasp, Polistes canadensis. I've actually carefully labeled all of the wasps in this nest. I don't know if you can see, but we've got number tags on them. We've also got paint spots on them. We mark them when they emerge from their pupal cell as newly born wasps. And then we follow their behaviors through their life. We know how much they've foraged. We know how much brood care they've done. We know how much they've beaten up another wasp. We know how much they've been beaten up by a wasp. We get so involved with these societies by watching them that they become these little soap operas that we cannot distinguish ourselves from them. It's really addictive. You get into it, you think number 52, she's going to beat up number 74. Go girl, you can do this. I know what's happening on this nest because I removed the queen. And if you remove the queen from these nests, all of those other wasps, they're wannabe queens in waiting, and they'll have a big fight to become the new queen. It's super exciting. So much better than TV, better than Traitors. Have you watched Traitors here? I'm not sure. Anyway, all right, number 3. So actually you've had diversity, you've had assassins, you've had paper makers, you've had sociality. But maybe you're still telling me, I still don't get it, Sarian. I still don't see why wasps matter. You've just told me some science. It's not really what wasps are doing for me in the environment. Why should I really care? In the same way that I care about bees. So these last three reasons are the reasons why you should care about wasps for their utility, for their importance to you, to humanity, and to the planet. I'm going to start with medicines and food, and also a family holiday clip that I took in Croatia, not far from here, a couple of years ago. This is a little pompilid wasp, so she's a relative of the big Amazonian Pepsis plutus you saw earlier. She's a spider hunter. She has paralyzed this enormous spider. Just found it on the path. So she's paralyzed that spider. Now think about what it is that she needs to do to paralyze that spider effectively. If she overshoots, she kills it, and that's no good to her offspring. She also is going to bury her offspring in a hole with that spider, which is going to feed off it for several weeks. Think about the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi that might exist in the soil around that paralyzed spider and the cute baby wasp that is eating it alive. That wasp, the mother wasp, has to be able to preserve her prey perfectly. And so she's not only a brilliant assassin, she's also a brilliant alchemist, because her venom contains components that have medical properties and that help keep bacteria and diseases at bay. Now, the research that's gone into wasp venom is actually remarkably small. But what we do know is that wasp venom contains two medically proven important components. One is bradykinin. Now, if you're in hospital in intensive care and doctors need to get drugs pumped around your body quickly, they might give you bradykinin. Perhaps not from a wasp yet, but it's the same chemical. And that causes all your veins to dilate, causes vasodilation, which enables those drugs to get around your body. And that's exactly what a wasp needs to do to get the poison pumped around the body. Bradykinin in the venom. The other one is mastoparins. Mastoparins are a peptide, and excitingly, they appear to have properties that could mean that they could be a treatment for cancer, because they cause cancerous cells to explode, cause them to hemorrhage. These are really exciting and much unresearched areas of the wasp world. And bearing in mind that the venom that wasp needs to paralyze the spider will be quite different to the venom that a wasp needs to paralyze a beetle larva or a caterpillar. So what are the components? What are these untapped medicine cabinets that are locked away in the abdomens of these wasps in their venom? This is the bee wolf. She's quite common around here. She's a wasp, and she's holding a bee because she hunts bees, as the name suggests. And she is possibly the only wasp that has really been explored in terms of the biomedical properties and the disease defenses that wasps do in order to preserve their prey when they've buried them in the ground with their baby wasp. She has a remarkable portfolio. When she's caught the bee, she will embalm it, she will lick it all over to create kind of a waterproof coating. So that's like a first line of defense. It's like you're putting a coat on your child. Sorry to pick on you all the time, but you will sit in the front row. Putting a waterproof coat on your child, that's the equivalent, okay? So it's first line of defense. Basic parenting. It's okay, not judging. Secondly, she puts it in the ground, and then from her antenna, these things, she will exude a bacteria, Streptomyces, which produces streptomycin, which along with penicillin is one of the most important antibiotics that we use to target bacterial infections. The wasp's doing it. She's done it millions of years before we thought of it. And then the best bit, and the kids always love this, is that the egg itself gives off toxic farts of nitrous oxide, which is a fungicide. So just in this really common ground nesting solitary wasp, you have that threesome repertoire of its defense mechanisms and all of the ways in which it deals with bacteria and fungi and viruses. This is another one of my favourite examples. Again, really unstudied and accidentally discovered. But this is a mud-daubing wasp from Africa. It gathers up soil, mixes it with saliva, and then forms its pot that it will then lay an egg in, provision with caterpillars, seal it up and say goodbye. It likes to build its pots inside the mud huts of people's houses in rural Africa. And anthropologists accidentally discovered some secrets locked inside those pots. They realized that there were lots of holes in the huts of these people's houses. And they asked the people, why have you got holes in your hut? And they said, it's the women. It's the pregnant women. The pregnant women and the children will eat the pots, the wasp nests, off the walls of the huts. And the anthropologists thought this is very interesting. And they went away and they analysed the components of that nest. And they found that that nest is enriched with minerals that you would go to the pharmacy to buy if you are pregnant or you want to make sure your child is not malnourished. So magnesium and zinc and iron. Isn't that remarkable? Those have antibiotic properties as well. The wasp is enriching. She's creating an antibiotic-laced nest for her baby wasp. How marvellous is that? Okay, I've mentioned medicines, and now I'm going to come on to food. Does anyone feel a little peckish when you look at this video of a wasp nest? You can see larvae, the white caps are pupae. This is the comb of a Vespa mandarinia nest that we collected in Japan. And the people of Japan absolutely go crazy for these wasps. So crazy that it is a very popular hobby, particularly for retired gentlemen. They will lure in the wasp, as you can see here on the left, and they will tie a lasso, a piece of ribbon around the waist of that wasp, and then they will follow her back to her nest. And we chase the wasp. You chase the wasp down the road, and you figure out where the nest is, and then you dig up the wasp nest, and then you bring it back to a hive, just like a honeybee. Bring them back to a hive where they will be free-flying, foraging in the environment, but also having some lovely supplemented chicken or tuna giving to them as well. And then at the end of the season, these Japanese wasp keepers will harvest the larvae and pupae, and they will sell it. So here's the wasp keeper at the bottom there. We went to the local supermarket, and there were his wasps, larvae and pupae, in the freezer for sale. Or you might choose to take your wasp nest along to the Wasp Festival, which happens every October in Japan. And the biggest wasp nest will win the prize. So I don't know if you do this in Bulgaria, but we have this peculiar habit in the UK. We have these garden fetes, and we will bring along our biggest marrow, or squash, and we will, the person with the biggest one will get the prize. They do it for wasps because they love the wasps, because they think they're fabulous and fascinating, and they're not scared of them. I was in India a few months ago. I had the pleasure of going to Nagaland, which is this northeastern bit of India, which is not Indian at all. It's almost like its own community. It's full of people who live a very indigenous way of life, tribal communities. And they have an incredibly exquisite relationship with the wasps around them. They have over 12 species of social wasps that live around them. And this is Vespa mandarinia. And she has been collected by Benny, this wasp keeper. He's put her in a little box to keep her safe, because this is the most vulnerable stage for a social wasp. It's a foundress. She's on her own. She has to build her nest. She has to go out foraging and feed her own brood. She's solitary at this moment. She's not social. So it's a very vulnerable time, and most nests fail. So these wasp keepers cherish these wasps so much that they will bring them into captivity for a period of time until the first workers emerge. And then he will go to the forest, he will choose the best site, he will dig a big pit, and then he will put this nest inside the pit, and a beautiful big nest will emerge around it. The reason we know this, and the reason we know why and how they manage to work with the wasps so incredibly well, is because of their indigenous expert ecological knowledge. They have an understanding of wasps which is not documented in the scientific literature. It's quite astonishing, having studied wasps for 25 years and then finding that they're telling us facets about the ecology of these insects that we didn't know. They know how to find the wasps. They don't have to lure them in because they know that the wasps will go to the sap in the oak trees. On the left-hand side is one of my PhD students, Femi Benny, and she is studying the ecology of that sap and how the sap interacts with the reproductive system of those foundresses. And we wouldn't be able to do this without the indigenous expert knowledge of these communities. When they harvest their wasp nests, the people of Nagaland will either eat them themselves because it's a great feast, or they will take it to market. And you can see the size of that nest in the middle there. Just about see the man behind it. They are literally bigger than my arm's width. And that would sell for around about 600 euros. Bearing in mind a cup of coffee costs 20 pence or 20 cents there. That's how important a commodity wasps are to these communities. And you can go to the local markets, and amongst the vegetables and the fruit, you will find live combs of live wasps for sale. They love them. So let's just have a little quick recap. What was number 7? Number 6. Number 5. Papermakers. Number 4. Sociality. Number 3. Medicines and food. Number 2 is pollinators. I think you might know this already. Wasps do pollinate, and you're nodding sagely, oh yeah, fig wasps. Everyone loves a fig. Everyone should also know that when they eat a fig, that there is no wasp in there because the fig produces an enzyme that degrades the wasp. But there are over 800 species of fig wasps, and there are over 800 species of figs, and they're largely faithful to each other. They've co-evolved. The wasp can't live without the fig, and the fig can't live without the wasp. It's a mutualism. In fact, in the life cycle of that wasp, she spends barely any time outside the actual fig itself. That's a really common example. Everyone knows about figs and fig wasps. Nod, please. Thank you. Okay, you might know a little less about the picture on the right. This is a gorgeous, exquisite male orchid wasp. And he is sitting on a flower that has evolved to mimic an incredibly sexy orchid female wasp. So to him, this flower looks like a female wasp, smells like a female wasp, and even feels like a female wasp. So much so that he goes and tries to mate with this flower, and during that vigorous mating process, the flower pops a little bit of pollen on his back. I think you can see that yellow blob. And then he goes on to the next sexy-looking female flower wasp, and so on. And this is an example of how flowers have evolved to manipulate wasps. It's not a mutualism. The wasp gets nothing out of this. It's the flower that's winning there. These are probably the only examples of wasp pollination that are well studied and well documented. But actually, all wasps visit flowers and have the potential to pollinate. We know that because wasps are defined by this thin wasp waist. And that means that they can't digest protein themselves. So although they will hunt prey to feed to their brood, it's the brood that are the carnivores, and the wasps themselves are actually vegetarian. Now, they usually get their sugar, their nutrition, from the larvae that they feed. So when they feed the larvae some prey, the larvae in the social wasp will regurgitate a redigested form of that prey. So the larvae are like a social stomach that make these protein available to the wasps. But the wasps also will go to get nectar from flowers, just like bees. And in doing so, they will be transferring pollen from flower to flower. Now, wasps are not renowned for being the specialist pollinators that bees are. And yet they are really rather understudied. And we've been looking at which different species of plants different wasps visit. And there's a huge diversity. And some scientists believe that wasps, because they tend to be quite generalist in the types of flowers that they will visit, they're not that fussy. They'll go for anything. So scientists think that these wasps are actually really important as backup pollinators in areas and degraded habitats which perhaps can't support a really healthy bee population. So that's a reason to love wasps. They pollinate. And in fact, recent studies have shown that wasps can completely replace the pollination services of bumblebees. So if you take bumblebees out of the system, you put the wasps in, the yields on the plants are just as high. Okay, the final reason to love wasps, and I am almost done, I know I've gone over time. The final reason to love wasps is the only thing, if you remember one thing today, forget their talks, just remember that wasps are pest controllers. They are nature's pest controllers. This is a maize field in Brazil, and it is a monoculture. It is larger than a state, a country. It's as far as you can see, all you can see is maize. It's a monoculture. It's this large agro industry that dominates a lot of Brazilian agriculture. And once you get a pest in there, the maize can be completely decimated unless you have the right pesticides or you have some genetically modified crops. And in fact, the Brazilians have gone to town because these crops are now, the pests are now evolving in Brazil. They're evolving resistance to GM crops and to the pesticides. And so they've had to come up with another solution. And that solution is wasps. So remember that fairy wasp, that fairy fly that I mentioned at the start? That's a parasitoid wasp, and it's used in pest control. There are other types of wasps are used in Brazil. They're farmed in factories. They have big buildings that are devoted to rearing wasps. And then they will package them up into football-type domes, and they will send them off using drones into the fields of maize, where they'll drop into the fields, and the parasitoid wasps will run riot through the field, laying their eggs in the pests and killing them. They're a really effective form of pest control. Now, the use of parasitoid wasps in pest control is not new. The scale in which they're doing it in Brazil is new and very exciting. But what I'm trying to advocate is the use of wasps, the other wasps, the hunting wasp, the stinging wasp, both the solitary wasp, but mostly the social wasp, the wasps that bother you at your picnics, because they are generalist hunters. They will go for anything that is abundant. They will also go for carrion. The picture in the middle is a common yellow jacket wasp munching away on a bit of meat. That could be your barbecue sausage. They go for carrion. That means that they're clearing up the ecosystem. They're recycling nutrients. But they will eat anything. They will go for aphids on your tomato plants. They'll go for caterpillars in your cabbages. You name it, whatever is abundant in the ecosystem, they will go for. And that means that they're really important in regulating the populations of arthropods and keeping the ecosystem in check. They are the leopard seals of the non-iced ecosystems. They are the apex predators. We know this because we've recently started looking at the specific prey items that these wasps will eat. So you can see on the bottom right-hand side that there's a larva, the big white mushy thing. Now inside that larva you might see a black tube, and that black tube is its gut. And the wonderful thing about insects that go through metamorphosis is that before they metamorphose, before they pupate, they contain everything that they've been fed in their life. So the gut of a larval wasp contains everything that it's been fed since it hatched into a baby larva. So what we do is we whip out those guts, just like a sock, and we sequence the contents of those guts. We look at the DNA in order to work out what species that wasp has eaten. These are the data that we recently published in a paper for some wasps just collected in the south of England, across the south of England. And you can see there's a huge diversity. They eat bees, wasps, and ants. They eat flies. They eat bugs. They eat butterflies and moths. They eat grasshoppers. You name it, whatever is in the ecosystem, they will be eating. This means they're really important as apex predators in keeping ecosystems in check. Now, from that, I was thinking, well, surely wasps could be useful for pest control. And this idea is not new. In fact, over 150 years ago, Edward Ormerod, in his fabulous book on British social wasps, says that the practical result of destroying all of Sir Brisbane's, all the wasp nests on Sir Brisbane's estate was that in 2 years' time, the place was infested, like Egypt, with a plague of flies. So what that means is that if you take those wasp nests out of the ground, if you kill the wasp nest this summer in your garden, then the fly populations are going to explode, along with everything, all the other insect populations. This is potentially the first experimental evidence. If you take wasps, you take that apex predator out of the system, then the whole ecosystem becomes unbalanced. So we've been working on this a little bit, and we've shown that in Brazil, using these Brazilian wasps, which have the fantastic name of Palistes Satan, they can be effective in controlling and reducing the pest levels and the damage sustained on maize and sugarcane plants for the two of the world's most devastating economic crop pests, which are the fall armyworm and the sugarcane borer. These wasps will eat those, they'll feed them to their brood, they'll even dig them out of the inside of the plant to feed to their brood. They can be really effective as pest control. And at a time when we have to be so much more careful and be thinking about much more sustainable ways of growing food, of ensuring that we don't go hungry, but ensuring that that doesn't come at a cost to the planet, to the health of our ecosystems, and to our own human health, we have to stop using chemicals. We have to work with nature. And wasps are natural enemies that can be used to do this. And the diversity of wasps around the world, particularly in the tropics, and particularly in the parts of the world where food is most affected by climate change, those subsistence farmers in Africa and in Asia and South America, they are being most affected by climate change because they can no longer use their traditional methods to control pests because the climate is changing, the rainfall is not predictable, and they're also having more invasive pest species coming in. So they don't have access to GM crops, and they don't have access to the healthier pesticides that we in the West have. And so they end up using the pesticides that have been banned in most countries in Europe. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for their ecosystems, and it's dangerous for their own health. So we've been working with farmers through in parts of Africa to try and work with them to see how we can help them harness the endless forms of wasps that are living in the buildings around their farms and encourage their population such that they can make use of these free pest controlling services that the wasps provide. Okay, I'm done, and I'm going to tell you that there are 7 reasons to love wasps, and I'd like you to tell me now which ones you found most fulfilling. Is it that they are diverse? Is it that they are assassins? Please get your phones out, there'll be a Slido coming up. Is it that they're paper makers, or that they are socialites? Or perhaps you care more about utility, the future promise of foods and medicines from wasps, that they are pollinators and that they could be these backup pollinators in degraded habitats, or that they are nature's pest controllers. Please go onto your Slido and you can vote for your favorite reason. I hope it's working. Is it working? Yeah? Okay. Do I get to see what's happening? Can you see what's happening? No? Okay, and whilst you're doing that, you can also go on to the second. Can I do this? No? Maybe not. Let's do the first one first. Let me know when the results are in. Woo! Okay. Oh, I'm so disappointed with you guys. I really had high hopes for you. Oh, you're so mundane. Yeah, pest control. No, that's great news. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. It's really interesting, though, because when I ask adult audiences these questions, they invariably come up with what you've come up with, is that wasps are important for pest control, and that's what might change your ideas about wasps. But actually, if we've got a younger audience, they always go for the assassins, which I really love, because the kids love them. Do they all vote for assassins? Yeah. But that's fantastic. And you know, at the bottom there, in fact, my thing of sociality isn't even on there. Did no one vote for sociality? Okay, I rest my case. This is what I spent the last 25 years studying, and that's why I've been banging my head against a brick wall, because nobody cares about sociality and social evolution. But it's all fine, because, you know, I'm studying pest control now, so it's all good. Hey, thank you very much, whoever voted for socialites.
Here it goes.
Okay, can we have one last? So I've got one more slide.
You got one more slide. Okay.
Sorry, I'm
go ahead.
almost done though.
Yeah, we're
Sorry, can we go back to well, actually, you can stay on the Slido. I'd now like you to tell me what words you now think of when you think about wasps. So hopefully the next Slido questions come up. Assassins! Woo! Sting's still there. That's okay. Interesting, amazing, cool, diverse, pest control, important, paralyze. I think you've been listening. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much. Can I have my last slide? Sorry, just to round up. Go back to my presentation. Assassins, yeah. I knew you like the assassins. Okay, so I've told you about the 7 reasons to love wasps, and I've told you about that, and you've changed your mind. Now let's come back to Baba Diam's quote. I think we will only conserve what we love. We can learn to love the unloved. We can learn to love the wasps. We will only love what we understand. We are starting to understand wasps. You now understand wasps. And we will understand only what we are taught. And I've learned a lot from the wasps and the people with wasps that I've met around the world. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you will enjoy the endless forms of wasps that are around you in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarian. You completely destroyed our schedule, so now we have like 30 seconds for questions.
Sorry.
That's fine. It was an absolutely fascinating talk. In terms of the results, I wouldn't really blame the audience that assassins is one of the things that are popping up. I mean, you yourself made the odd fashion choice to dress like an assassin yourself. You look like Uma Thurman from Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Like,
Woohoo!
you should always show up like that on talks like that, because it does seem like an uphill battle. I mean,
It's
they
totally an uphill battle.
still terrify me, and I'm sure it's true for the audience. But I'm sure you changed some minds. Now let's go real quickly through a few of the questions that we have submitted, and most of the rest of the questions we will cover during the discussion when we,
Sure.
together with Erica, will be covering the ugly animals and why we should love them. How many times have you been bitten by?
Stung. I've been stung only about 10, 15 times.
Only?
Yeah, because I used to be a bit slapdash, because bearing in mind, my gateway wasp didn't really sting. So my journey into wasps, I wasn't really wearing bee hats and protecting myself.
Right.
And then when I graduated to the more scary wasps, I did get stung quite a lot. And then there was one defining moment when I got stung on my eyebrow and my entire face blew up for about a week. And after that, I thought, right, I'm always wearing a bee hat when I go near a wasp nest. I'm always wearing long sleeve shirt and gloves.
And even after that, you go like, oh my God, I still love you.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I love you so much.
It's
I look like the
slightly
Elephant
abusive
Man.
relationship, but yeah.
All right. So how long do they live? Because you did say they're used for pollinators, but it seems, slightly dangerous. You release wasps to kill other creatures, but don't we get like wasp infestation afterwards? Like.
So no, because the ecosystem will keep things in check. And also in the temperate regions, the wasp nests, the social wasps, well, although all of them really are annual. And so at the end of the season, they will all die anyway. So if you wanted to augment your populations of wasps in your local farms in Bulgaria, for example, that would be totally fine to relocate nests to your farm. And then you would know, but by the end of the year, they will all have died. The mated queens will then go off and disperse, but they disperse quite far. So there's no reason to think that you'd get this very large buildup of wasp nests on your site. But in the tropics, the wasps' nests are perennial, so they don't have a natural end to the colony cycle, and you've got nests being founded all through the years. So in that respect, you might get this big buildup of wasp nests, but actually wasps themselves have predators and parasites, and they will keep check of the wasp population. So if you get a really big wasp population, all you need is a parasite to move in, and it will generally sweep through that population.
It balances itself.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so there is one creature that I think is even more hated than wasps. Politicians. I'm kidding. I think mosquitoes is impossible to, like, mosquitoes are the worst probably, but look at her. she's probably going to try to convince us otherwise. Are there wasps that eat mosquitoes, and can we use them for that purpose?
There will be a wasp that hunts mosquitoes.
There will be?
There will be. I don't know
Wait, we're
exactly
working
what
on
there will
that?
be. No, I can guarantee there is a wasp. There's
okay.
either a parasitoid wasp that will parasitize them. Are there any? Erica's going to look it up now and Google it. There is a parasitoid. There isn't a parasitoid. No, but we know that the social wasps do hunt dipterans, flies. And so if there are mosquitoes in abundance, they probably will hunt them. They're unlikely to hunt everything to the levels where you get completely rid of mosquitoes altogether or any organism, because we think that they just kind of cream off the most abundant because they're pretty lazy. You know, they just go for whatever's out there.
Right. We have plenty of more questions, but as I said, we're going to try to cover some of those in the discussion. Now, you've written an awesome book. And I would invite everyone in the audience to have a chat with you. The book is available in the bookstore up front. Thank you very much for doing this crazy thing for us. That is absolutely fascinating. It's an important work, and thank you for giving this talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.